Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Hello and welcome into another episode of DevOps Accent, a podcast where we, the co-founders of MKDev, get together to discuss all things around DevOps, cloud-native technologies, artificial intelligence, and things that get into our attention. And we invite guests from all around the world and from different domains to discuss with them what stick in our heads, what needs to be discussed, and where we should take a next turn in the industry and this ever-changing world. And this is a good time for me to remind you that we very much appreciate your likes and your subscribes, and make sure to be subscribed because there are a lot of good episodes ahead of us waiting for you. Every 2 weeks, you will be able to see this on the YouTube channel or on Spotify. Make sure to be subscribed. And the best way to not miss anything is to be subscribed to our MKDev Dispatch newsletter. You will find the links in the description under this episode. In this newsletter, we share everything that happened at MKDev for the last 2 weeks, and all the articles, all the news that happened to us, the new insights from the industry, we put in this newsletter. Don't miss that. And today at MKDev, at this episode, we are talking about something that I'd say both widely discussed and often ignored, workplace well-being. We hear about all the time, but when it comes to actually doing something meaningful about it, especially in high stress industries like IT, the conversation tends to stop at vague slogans or mental health days that nobody takes, especially if you watch some Netflix show. It always uses like a gimmick or you just basically make fun of people who care about mental health, and this is like a thing of Gen Z people who need that. And I think that it needs to be discussed more extensively, and this is why today we invited people who not only care about this issue, but who are actually building something real to address it. A startup called Welbemo, which is all about helping companies understand and improve the mental and emotional health of their teams. Joining me today are three of the minds behind the platform and co-founders. First, Samuele Monasterolo, CTO, a tech enthusiast with a strong entrepreneurial spirit, which, as he says, runs in the family. He discovered the world of startups during his academic years, and we will discuss this a little bit later. And Welbemo grew out of that passion and curiosity. Is that correct, Samuele?
Yeah, is it correct, Leo? Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks for coming. Then there is Lorenzo Grassi, CDO, who comes from, if I'm not mistaken, computer science background and started out writing software for planes at Leonardo, an aerospace industry. But during his studies, you, Lorenzo, realized that you wanted to build something with a more human impact, and that led you here, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. That exactly this. I wanted to build something that helps people and work in another type of company, like a startup.
Exactly. I understand you 100%. As I always say, do what you like the most and find the one who will pay you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And finally, and probably most importantly, Fabio Ciravegna, a professor at the University of Turin with over 20 years of experience in the United Kingdom, where he worked on everything from healthcare to counterterrorism. And he also happens to have co-founded 3 startups, including one with a whopping 69 million exit. Fabio, it's a great honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Very interesting lineup I have here. And I'd like to start with discussing. So, you guys from so different backgrounds, but you started this startup on very important topic. How come you found each other and how the idea was born? Because Welbemo's journey from, as I understand it, a university idea, right, to a full-fledged digital product is inspiring. Tell us more.
Yeah, the idea sparks from our background and our personal experience. During COVID, all of us has been try a lot of stress because we try university from home. It was not such a pleasure experience. And during the university, I went to a different part of the university where there is an entrepreneurial background. I met the other two co-founders that are not here today. One of them he studied psychology, and another one studied occupational medicine. And together with them, it was born the idea to create a platform to help companies to monitor their employee well-being. With well-being, we try to implement not only stress, but also to check if the employee are engaged, and the platform is studied and is synced to be customizable 100%, because we want to try to help different kind of companies, from big corporate to small entrepreneurial realities that in Italy there are a lot of them. And after that, I talk about the idea with Lorenzo. He was a friend of mine during the IT studies I made at the University of Turin. And we both have to choose a thesis, a dissertation to make for our master degree. And I was talking to a teacher that helped me during my first year at the university. And she told me, go to Fabio. He's a really good guy. He come from the UK. And I think he would love to help people to create a startup. And with that, we went to Fabio's office. And the idea, Fabio, I think he liked it because he helped us created the product that now is Welbemo. Now is a startup, and also Fabio introduced us to the incubators of the University of Turin. They help us a lot to create the first product, and also with the Italian regulation.
Interesting. This is like a very you have to be brave, yeah, to make this step and to talk to someone more experienced and like more bold there. But Fabio, how does it look like from your side when these guys came to you and pitching their idea?
Well, this is something that students tend to do. One of the reasons for moving back to Italy was really to bring my experience. And one of the first things I did was to create a startup lab together with the incubator. So what we do, we help students who have ideas to go through a process. Last year, we had 100 students doing that. And in the end, we created something like 8 or 9 startups. And one of them was Welbemo. And this year, we have another time. We have another number of students who are coming. And so it is really what I like to do. I like to talk with the students to see what ideas they have and try to make them real. Then I may or may not be part of it, but discussing is really what I like.
What interesting is that the idea didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in Italy, right? In a country not exactly famous for startup friendliness. And Fabio, I wonder, like, you came from United Kingdom. Many successful tech startups begin in environment designed to help them thrive, like in Silicon Valley, Berlin, London, Ireland. But you decided to come back to Italy and start to maybe even motivating young people to start their company there. Is there something there behind your your desire to build new companies, but maybe something connected to the Italy itself, because Italy is a country known more for bureaucracy than startup unicorns. And this is kind of, I'd say, it's a bold choice. So I want to dig deeper here. How did this platform begin, and what did it really take to get it off the ground in a place where the odds seem stacked against Dutch entrepreneurs?
Well, that's really a misconception, to be honest, because I must say you are much more supported in creating a startup in Italy than, at least in where we live in Italy, in Turin or in Milan, than it is actually in the UK. That is not in London. London is a kind of a different part of the UK. It's not even UK to some extent. So there are lots and lots of initiatives, and really people are keen here in Turin in trying to make things happen. And there is an incredible amount of funds as well, lots of them coming from the government that you don't have in the UK. The UK is very competitive. Either you have a great idea, you can survive, otherwise you die. Here, they give you the time to think and to learn. The incubators, in this case of the university incubator, follows you, helps you, especially with the bureaucracy. That is, something that is extremely important, because what we can do, of course, I don't know the Italian bureaucracy. That's a fundamental thing. So I'm learning as they are, and and they simply guide you. They give you the right people, and they even fund all the lawyers and the anybody who has to do the planning with you. And so you have a considerable amount of support from the society at large. And then, especially for the pre-seed, you tend to have also a larger number of opportunities. That, again, I didn't have in the UK. In the UK, I literally created and again, I used to live in the north of England. Again, it's not London, but it was far more difficult. So we literally created all the companies on a shoestring with the support of the university. That was great, but no money at all. While here, you have a lot of opportunities in terms of surviving for the first, let's say, for the first year. So I'm finding it much easier here than I used to find it in the UK.
Guys, Samuel, Lorenzo, do you share this notion?
They cope with the bureaucracy. I don't. That's why I find it so easy.
Yeah, but for example, Fabio says that the incubators of Turin follow us during the pre-constitution of the startups, and this was fundamental because, for example, they gave us the lawyers, and the main part of our application is data, in the sensitive data. So the lawyers was very important, because they told us how to manage the data and how to secure the application in the simplest and efficient ways. So it was very important.
Let's take a step back, because you, Fabio, have an experience co-founding startups, successful startups, and then you have these students that come to you proposing the idea. And this is a very important step, and I want to give our listeners this overview, because it is always said that idea is not everything. You need execution. And I wonder, what did you do give us this small lesson in a very condensed format, if it's possible, how the idea came about and evolved into a product. What are the steps? What did you do to Samuel, Lorenzo, the guys that came to you pitching the idea, how you evolved it into the product?
Yeah, when very often people come and talk about the dissertation, they have to do the dissertation. So they talk with me, and they generally, the first question they have is, do you have a project for me? And I then say, no, I don't have a project for you. You must come with an idea. And so very often the students who are interested come a couple of times or 3 times to discuss about ideas. And the first idea is never good. The first idea will never fly, but that sets your mind in motion. And then what we do, we start discussing together. So, for example, just to give you an example of Welbemo, so Samuele and Lorenzo came with the idea of selling to hospitals. And immediately I told them, look, I work with the hospitals for years and years. They don't buy. They don't buy from a startup. They don't buy from a small company. They would never do it. So let's find another market. And they went away and came back with this market they think is fantastic, because it's a market that is in search for solutions. It's a market that has specific characteristics. They would trust a small startup. And so the idea started flying. And then, of course, we started discussing about the technical solution, because we are 3 computer scientists. And of course, I use my experience in working with hospitals again, and the information in hospitals. But then, so we came up with an architecture. So it was all about a dialogue where they had ideas, they came with ideas. We started working together on the ideas and see if they could stand up to the reality of things. And then we worked again. And it was quite a long process, but it was very productive and very interesting, I must say. So the best thing of being in my position is that really you can pick the mind of people and challenge them, and then they come up with ideas. And I'm just the one sitting back and say, oh, wow, this is a great idea. Oh, no, this is not a good idea. And I always tell them, look, I'm wrong. Whatever I'm telling you, even if I tell you that I don't believe in what you do, I'm probably wrong. And, this is a kind of dialogue. And I think we had fun, and we still have fun.
Yeah, for sure. We came to Fabio not with the final idea. We know that this was the only the first step. But what I think from the startup journey is challenging is just like that. So to build something that develop every day and change and change every day. So this is good for us.
Yeah, doing startups mean using new tools every day, learning every day, and the beautiful things that they took us to work with Fabio is not only his technical skill, but his entrepreneurial vision, because it's not so common for an IT guy to be as good in entrepreneurial vision as he is.
And why well-being specifically? What's the story behind it? Because, okay, so the way how I see it, and from my perspective and talking to different people from different domains, the IT industry is facing the kind of hidden mental health crisis, because there are constant learning, remote work, isolation, job insecurity, high-stake problem solving, especially especially when it comes to high-tech industry. And most developers won't tell you they are burned out until they have already checked out. And yet, this is a massive issue in our industry, and you've done a lot of work on understanding how mental health and well-being are affected by the realities of working in tech. But before you start digging into this area, what made you think, okay, this is something that I want to do, and this is something that needs to be done? What was your motivation to start this type of product?
As Fabio previously said, the original idea was to sell these services to hospital, because from a study we did during the first part of the project, because before the MVP, before everything, we tried to talk to different people in different industry, and the two most difficult people that have burnout were the one that works into hospital and the IT person. For the hospital part, we have a person inside the team that is a doctor, so we talk with a lot of people he knows, and the people were really, really demanding for a solution like us. And for the IT part, me and Lorenzo were talking, and we try to imagine what a platform like our could do for a company. And we think, especially now that a lot of IT guys and girls are really young and try to imagine themselves in the near future working not only from home but inside the real company HQ. And a lot of people came from a different background. For example, in Italy, we have designers that work inside the company. We have lawyers inside the different companies. The people needs to work with each other, and not always is easy to get along with each other, especially when you go into a new reality. It's difficult to make friends and to work with them. And our idea is to create an easy place for the people to express themselves and to know if there are some problem and to get them some solution. This is the main goal of Welbemo.
But fundamentally, if you think when you talk about the assets of a company, if you are a transport company and of course you have your trucks, you will maintain the trucks, you will make sure that they are always perfect, because you know if the truck breaks down, then you won't be able to deliver or whatever you're doing. It seems pretty peculiar that in an industry where your main asset is your brain, nobody is thinking that if your brain for some reasons has problems, or can have major or minor problems, it doesn't matter. It will not perform at the same level. You said, well, yeah, most people won't realize until it's too late to some extent. That's exactly what we want to avoid. Exactly as you try to fix your truck before it breaks, you have to make sure that your brain is working properly, and you are in the best possible situation, best possible situation for you to perform. So it's of course it's an advantage for the company, and this is why it should come from the company. Very often, if you are the person who is experiencing problems, well, you won't realize you are. You will just feel under the weather. But it's exactly the company that, on the one hand, has all the advantage in you performing very well, and on the other hand, is actually looking after you because you look after your co-workers and your employees. So that was really the idea. And said, why are we not looking after the most valuable asset for as people and as companies?
I think one of the most important things is the way we measure mental health, our capacity, or the amount of energy that our brain can produce. And this is not something that can be measured with any kind of tool. Some people tried, but nothing good came out of it, as we know from the history. But I've read some reports from WebMD Health Services, and they noted that mental health issues cost the global economy 1 trillion annual due to loss of productivity. And this is something, this is some kind of a way to measure, right? So because people maybe they burn out and they stop doing what they do, and there is a way to measure how it impacted your company on one hand, but there should be some kind of a different way, and I want to understand, and you help me with that, how Welbemo could support companies here, and how the burnout can be measured, and how companies can detect warning signs using the product like Welbemo.
Yeah, it's not only just burnout, because we measure a lot of dimensions such as anxiety and work-life balance and so on. And we give to the employees validated quizzes, so the results are 100% safe, and we collect data through these quizzes, which are anonymous, so you can't really see what the employer have answered. And then we have a dashboard that is presented to the manager, the HR, and so they can see the data, and also from visualizing the data, we give the company consulted with our psychologists, so they can interpret the data better and then can act based on what they see, and we suggest some improvement based on the validated quizzes, basically. So
probably the right word is questionnaires, probably. So we have validated questionnaires that are validated scientifically. And so these are written by doctors and psychologists, and these are an international standard. And so what we do is that when an employee or a person decides to check for the problems they have, they are invited to take some of these questionnaires, answer some of the questions as a kind of self-assessment form. But then in the end, they get a result for each of these dimensions that Lorenzo mentioned. So, for example, if you go for stress, that is the obvious thing, you will have a level of stress that is scientifically evaluated, and therefore on that you can act, or you can be helped, if you like, if you need help, in the ways that they will tell you now.
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At MKDev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.
The way how I understand this is basically you have questionnaire or a quiz that a company can send out to all the employees, let them answer that. And I remember maybe a year and a half ago, there was a very loud story about something related when a company ran a mental health test on the employees to measure the level of stress. And then they fired everyone who has a high stress level because they don't want them to be stressed at the work. This is like extreme example, right? But on the other hand, they knew specific persons who had issues, and you have this cumulative result, basically an average temperature in the hospital. Right? So based on the average temperature in the hospital, we have sick people, so we need to do something. But how can you address that directly and help this particular individual directly with their issues without knowing who they are?
So there are two parts here. One is what the company sees, and the other one is what the employee or the person will see. So what the personnel department, the HR department will see is an aggregate number divided by, for example, functions or divisions or whatever you have, in a way that is guaranteed that there is no possibility to understand who the different people are. What you see is the environment. You evaluate the stress within the environment rather than in specific people. And this is because the company can act if specific areas are particularly affected by one of these dimensions. Clearly, there are some areas of the companies that will be, for example, under stress. Typically, customer relationship. They tend not to be necessarily the happiest people in the world. Of course, it's a very stressful job. But then there is the individual. The individual is helped with with some kind of suggestions and helps in coping with the problems they have. And also, they can be suggested to continue along a specific path. The path is defined by the law. This is quite important. If you are in a specific situation, the law requires that your company helps you in a specific way. So there is a moment where the employee can act on this and ask to be supported as required by law. I would like to say one thing about the companies that fire the employees who are stressed. Well, yes, if you're a company that's trying to fire people, that's okay. But most companies, especially in IT, have the opposite problem. They want to keep people. So the real issue is this is an asset for you, and you want to keep them, because losing any computer scientist or engineer, software engineer, is generally a serious problem, because you may not be able to replace them. So I think there may be industries where this could happen, but the system will not allow that because it's anonymous. But I think, especially for IT, it's quite the opposite. You want to help them.
I see. Samuel, Lorenzo, would you like to expand?
Yeah. Welbemo, if your company does not like to monitor stress, Welbemo is possible to use it for example, engagement and other positive things to monitor. For example, if you want to monitor the work-life balance or the level of activity that your worker have outside of your company. For example, you want to know if people like to walk and to do sport after their work. You can do it with our quizzes. For example, if you with their answer you see that people does not do a lot of sports during their free time, you can try to have, for example, a day of the week where you put a little group and they can do some kind of sport, for example, during the lunch break, and then you can monitor, for example, if the stress gets low or other kind of things. The idea is to experiment with the people, experiment to help them, try to find the best solution for everyone, and try to make everyone life at work a little better, because a little better for each one of the people, it's a lot for the company.
Yeah, and one of the things we offer is also correlation between data. So you can see, for example, if a department has a higher anxiety, and why there is that higher anxiety, because, for example, there is a low work-life balance experience, or, for example, people don't feel like their job is important inside their work, and so on. So this is a very important thing, the correlation between data.
Mm-hmm. Another tricky question. When it comes to sending the employee questionnaires, how do you make sure that people who receive this questionnaire, they not just simply answer with correct answers in order to, I'd say, and I don't know, to comply, or not to create additional stress for the employers? Because, for example, they might think, okay, I might be a troubled person for them. They need to spend more money on helping me coping with my stress, improve my productivity with that. They don't want to deal with that. I will try to act safe, and I will answer correct. I will select good points so that I present to them as a good and healthy person.
Yeah, that's why they are validated scientifically, because you cannot trick them.
You cannot trick science.
The point is, most of the validated questionnaires in health in general, in medicine and health, are always designed exactly for that. I worked for ages with the cardiologists, for example, and they, one of the things they used to say jokingly, but not much jokingly, was, when a new patient comes and I ask a question, I never listen to what they say. If I ask them, how are you? Have you had any problem with your heart or recently? I don't listen to them. I see how they, I notice how they talk, because that's far more important. So most of these questionnaires are exactly designed so that when people think, you used to tell me, we used to live in the north of Britain, of England, where people are miners or they work in the steel industry. So there is the myth of the person is very strong. We used to say, I have a person with a triple bypass and two serious heart rate problems. You ask how they are doing, and say, oh, never been so well, banging on the on the chest, exactly what they shouldn't do. Clearly, that's exactly what happens in health. So the questionnaires are validated in a way that they can pick up these kind of signals. And that's why it's very important to have a doctor on board and a psychologist on board. So being scientifically, grounded means that you don't fall in these tricks. There are companies providing, things where you give 5 smiley faces if you're feeling well. That's not validated. What you get is just what you get on social media, basically. So no, it's very important. This is why these questionnaires are validated.
I see. And how does it work on the background, like on your back end or under the hood? So you receive the answers. What happens with them? Do you have a person who checks it? Because help me understand it, because I understand my communication with my therapist. Okay, we sit in front of each other, we talk to each other, they see my face, my expressions, the way how I see it, my body language, things like that, and they can crack me like that, just as you basically just described, right? Even I can be silent, and they will be able to tell what's wrong with me right now. And now you have on the data, you have answers, you have text, how you process it. Do you have people there? Do you have some brain, I don't know, like a wise computer who processes it and sends indicators that something is off in the answers? Or is it a know-how that you cannot share here?
A validated questionnaire has fixed answers, 1 to 5. As in, you can choose among options, and therefore, and it's validated because it's exactly based on a mathematical model. This is the first level, the level of the questionnaires. Of course, and there is the level of generative artificial intelligence. We are going to talk probably in a moment. That's a different matter. Matt, for what concerns the questionnaires, this is exactly how they work. So you give the answers, and they will come up with a measure.
And of course, we check the time that the user took to take an answer, because if you want to go bam, bam, bam and check 20 questions in 30 seconds, the platform don't allow to do that because you can't read it as much question in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm. So you basically incorporated some protection from cheating.
Yeah. We try to test the first MVP with people, and we saw that a lot of people try to do the quiz as fast as possible, and they didn't read anything. So we implement this thing by looking at how user engage with our application.
All right, you probably noticed from the way how I ask, the questions I'm asking, and basically I'm acting a little bit protective here, because and I think that this idea is popular among people, especially in this era of everything is digital, and there is a fine line between helpful personalization and I don't know, a creepy surveillance, right? Especially when you are collecting, say, sensitive data about someone's physical state, and I might be concerning sharing this kind of information. So I'm curious, especially as you build towards artificial intelligence features, how are you thinking about that balance between insights and intrusion? And how do you make sure people actually trust what you're building?
Fabio, if you want, I think you are the right person to talk about this. So
Absolutely, there are two types of people who generally you distrust. The one is the government, the other one is your employee. When you talk about mental health, this is a really good point. The fact is that, as said, using a validated questionnaire, there are The process is, when it is digital or when it is physical, is the same, and the parameters chosen are the same, and they are designed exactly to pick up this kind of problem. So, for example, people are lying just to oversimplify. That gives you immediately information about the company. This is clearly a company where, the system may not even work, but the only valuable thing that tells you is that everybody's terrified. Everybody doesn't trust the environment. So that's an incredibly valuable information. So the point is, exactly as in the real world, when you see a person who replies, as Samuele said before, very quickly, because, I always have to use number one because it's the positive one, you clearly realize that this person is not trusting you. But he's not trusting Welbemo. It's not that he's not trusting Welbemo. It is not trusting the employer. So, that's the first information. Clearly, as everything, every strategy, every analysis you do requires a receptive environment. Clearly, there are companies where, not even the psychologist that goes physically. I remember I was, at the beginning of my career, I worked for a very large company where everybody was quite wary about the company. A psychologist came. And she started saying, but you should trust me because, I'm an independent person. And I remember myself answering, why they've changed from slavery to employment? Because a slave, you can't control it. But a person who's working, paying just day by day can actually be blackmailed. So I don't trust you because I know that you will lose your job because you're not an employee, you are an external consultant. So, it may be very, very difficult, but what we are talking here is exactly to understand if the situation is that. In that case, there is a clear hint to the employer what the situation is. In a situation that is more cooperative, there may be people who are individually not trusting the system. But again, that will be picked up, will not be reported to the employer, but that this person behaves in a specific way, and therefore this is part of the problem. And can be stress, so you have to drill down and understand where the problem is. So it's very delicate. It's a very delicate matter, and this is why I repeat, it's extremely important to use scientifically validated questionnaires, because otherwise, it's just your guess as good as mine.
Exactly. And then, following questions. Now that very important, sensitive data, you trust artificial intelligence. How does this work? Do you have to train a model to be able to understand this? Or what are you using? Are you using pre-trained model? What's the goal? What part of the process you delegate to artificial intelligence?
So the user will fill the questionnaire, and the questionnaire will come up with an answer. It's typically a number, and then the person will have questions. So if your stress comes up as 75, you have no idea what that means. So in that case, you have a chatbot that is based on generative artificial intelligence that is completely local, so it doesn't go to America or whatever. It's on the server of Welbemo. And then you can ask questions like, what does it mean? What could be a solution? How can I act? So it's the artificial intelligence system is instructed very rigidly to answer only some specific questions and only for specific reasons. So whatever question that is outside that kind of remit, it will say either I cannot answer this question or this is inappropriate for me. So it's really instructed. It's mostly for the person to reason on the results of the questionnaires. So what shall I do? Do you think I should? I need help, or do you think that Or the system may ask questions to the person to say, well, have you thought about what could be? So it's mostly a way to let the person think, but the data is not sent to the employer. The data remains within the area of the person, and it's not used in any other ways. So it's mostly to understand what the questionnaire is telling you.
This is a very smart way to implement artificial intelligence into a product without giving it too much and avoiding one of the most, I'd say, common issue with AI that it hallucinates a lot, right? And you don't want it to hallucinate on this very important and sensitive data. When it comes to protecting the data, I assume you have to, I don't know, you have to process a lot of information, a lot of personal information, and you have to balance which data you send to the employer. I mean, and the level of responsibility, how they store this data, or is it you who are responsible for storing the data for them? Do you have this balance between? Because this is basically we've been discussing this with a person who's working in healthcare, and this is one of the main problems why companies in healthcare, clinics, hospitals, they do not share the information between each other because you have to protect this data. But on the other hand, it would be much easier for me if doctors from different hospitals know all the information about me, so that I don't have to explain everything from the scratch, right? So, and this is something that I wanted to ask you: how do you store the data? How do you treat it? Do you share it something with the employer, so letting them process the data, or do you keep everything on your own services and feeding the employer only the results?
So in our case, with most of our company, of the company that work with us, we store their information on our server. Always, because a lot of companies are not so big. For example, we don't have like military industry companies, because in that case, we will need to store our information on their server. And this is possible because we created a web app that's easily deployable everywhere. So if a company has really, really sensitive information and they want to keep this information inside their server, we could provide that kind of services. But usually companies trust us because also, as we said at the start of the episode, with the incubator, we also have a consultancy for cybersecurity aspect of the application. And this was really important to give us a trust in what we made, and to keep a foundation for the further development of the application. So the company trusts us, and we keep everything on our server. Also, as Fabio said, the artificial intelligence run locally on our server, so we don't send any data to any other provider.
Plus, the main focus of our dissertation last year was build the application by following the guidelines of privacy by design. So we build all the stuff following the GDPR rules and so on. So this is very important things to follow, and this is the core of our application.
Yeah, but so to answer directly your question, who processes the data? That's us. They have clearly told you, well, if the company needs as they need that no information must be exported, we can have a server within their firewall, but will still be the server completely controlled by us. So the employer does not have any right to access the data directly, even if they have the control of the server, and therefore they believe that they can hack it. In reality, the data is built in a way that is not hackable. So, for example, the answer you gave to artificial intelligence or even to the questionnaires will not be associated with your name, will be associated with a single ID, and that ID will have any other data about the person that is stored elsewhere. So it will not be on that server. It will be on another database, on another server, and therefore you have to hack also the other server to do it. And that server will be most of the time not within the company's remit. But again, so the point is we manage the data and we pass the employer just a summary of the data divided by sections, divisions, whatever we have agreed with them, and in each of them is guaranteed by statistical means that there are enough people so that you cannot identify the person. This is also something you use normally in health. When you publish data, it is a summary. You always make sure that the court doesn't have enough people, so that, for example, you are the only 24-year-old in a division, and therefore that's you. They are designed in a way that you are never recognizable. And this is why we need to work with the company to make sure that this doesn't happen. But again, the data is with us. It's not shared except for the summary, and this is guaranteed by the Welbemo charter, and the company must accept it. Otherwise, we don't work with them.
And in the end, who do you think benefits more from tools like that? Is that the employee or the employer? Because I imagine myself on the workplace answering these kind of questions and getting insights. I think that would be valuable for myself to understand what's happening, because I don't always can recognize, right, what's happening with me. Because, for example, I feel sad. Why is that? Right, and I don't always have an answer.
Yeah, I think both of them. So the employees make a self-assessment of her situation. So as you said before, she or he can see what is the problem they affect, and the company see the dashboard, so they can act based on the data and possibly save money, because the people are the key of the company. So if people work better, then the quality of the work is better. So
I also wanted to zoom out a little bit here, because from my perspective, most companies focus narrowly on stress or burnout, but real well-being is, I think, is broader. And you, Samuele, you touched a little bit here when you were discussing that capabilities of analyzing not just burnout, mental health, or your even your own life work balance, the way how you exercise outside the job, things like that. Because workplace well-being isn't just about how you feel on a Wednesday, right? It's whether you feel secure in your role, connected to your team, and like do you like your career has do you know if it has a future, especially in IT, where people are constantly learning or worrying about outsourcing or layoffs. That broader definition really matters to me. So how do you think about the deeper layers of well-being, like financial stress or the pressure to constantly grow, and can you help people with this kind of insecurities?
Yeah, the beautiful things to build a product is to use it in the first place. I use Welbemo every day, and usually I try to track my anxiety. And the cool things is that we built also a personal diary when you can put every kind of event that happens in your life. For example, if you have like a meeting with your team that goes well, you can put it inside the diary. But also you can insert there if you have been laid off, or if the boss gave you some more money, for example, with a bonus or that kind of stuff. And the idea is to use their data and correlate it with the level that you took with the quizzes. So, for example, if I took regularly a quiz every 10 days and I use the diary at least 2 or 3 times per week, I insert there my main event. In the near future, we try to implement this AI agent that will correlate this data, especially with the reasoning capabilities of the latest large language model. This is possible, and this could be really useful to give you insight for your daily life, but also for your working life. This could give you tips and tell you what can be improved to improve your mental well-being, and also your general life. Because if you are feeling well at work, at work you spend almost 1/3 of your day. So it's really important to be in a really good work environment. And the companies that implement Welbemo in their workflow are really conscious about that. For the first client, we see about 90% of people that need to use the app using it. So 90% of people inside a company of 100 is 90 people that try to improve their well-being, and try to increment their lifestyle also outside the working environment that they are in.
But working on your own well-being, I know if you can give me examples of what the system tells you to do, because I understand it's not just my part to improve my health, right? It's also the employer part, because what kind of advices you tell them, you give them in order to improve something. Because if the employer is not willing to change or to adapt, it won't work, right? So what kind of results, I mean, what kind of recommendation do you provide to them and to the person, to the individual person, in order to work better? Because I can imagine the answer. Okay, you need a therapist. Go talk to a doctor, right? But, on my side. But how do I know as an employer that my employer is taking action? Is there an indicator, or is there a way that indicates that my employer is working on that?
Yeah, the indicator is the dashboard for the employer, because you see the trend of for example, stress level or engagement level getting better every week. And as a person that works inside that company, I also see that my level, for example, of anxiety or work-life balance are changing, and hopefully they are changing for the better. And to be clear, the AI works both for the workers and for the employer. For the employer, we are trying to implement similar things that is for the workers. The idea is to suggest the right kind of intervention. For example, a psychologist won't work every time inside the company, and we try to construct a network with people, for example, mental health expert, or people that manage stress in a different way, in a modern way. And this is really useful because a lot of companies have a really low age for their workers. So we would like to try to test new things. And with Welbemo, you can test something on a little group of people, check if that things work, and eventually extend it to all the company and improve it into last place.
For the employer part, okay, what kind of advices you give to them? Can you give it? Okay, just pay them more and everything will be fine.
As Samuele says, we are part of, Welbemo must be seen as part of a kind of ecosystem. Ecosystem is partially determined by the law. So clearly, if you have, just to oversimplify, if you are an employer, you have an employee who is clearly in trouble, you are required to call a psychologist, or better, a different type of person. But anyway, a specialist, and they have to go through a specific formal process. But the point is, most of the time, when you go to that level, it's too late, or at least it's well along the way. It shouldn't be there. So Welbemo is a way to measure. It's a way to understand where you are as a company or as a person, and to assess your situation, and also to focus. Because most of the time, the company is very willing to do things, but doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what the situation is. It just, oh, I think they are fine, or I think, no, they are in trouble, maybe they're not. So that will allow you to measure. Then we are part of an ecosystem, and of course, we can tell the employers, look, we think that help from this kind of person would help you, this type of person will help you. So we can either suggest types of figures that could act and help them with specific suggestion, or directly people, because we have a number of people we trust, and we can say, well, we know he's very good. You need a psychologist of this type, and if you want, we also have a person, and so that the service is complete, but it's not completed by us. We are part of this ecosystem.
Okay, sounds reasonable, and I'm genuinely happy hearing this, and I'm happy that we live in this timeline where things like that become possible. Thanks to technology, thanks to artificial intelligence, something good came out of it, and I'm glad that more and more people are not just asking questions about it, but taking actions. And the technologies like this help them, and this gives me a lot of hope. And thank you guys for what you are doing. And really, I think this is very important. And the way that your approach, your not just thoughtful but also scientific approach, is very, very valuable. Thank you for that. I'm kind of sad that we only have 1 hour to discuss that, because I have so many more questions about it, about mental health, and I think this is important. And if you, our listeners, think this topic is important to you, if you want to hear more about that, let me know. Let me know in the comments, in the emails, replies to MKDev Dispatch newsletter, where we will share this episode with you as well. Describe your experience with that, how your employer work with your health and things like that. I'm curious, and probably we will be able to expand on this topic and maybe invite Fabio and Samuele and Lorenzo again to go deeper into the matter. You guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing and finding the time to share your stories. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
And thank you for inviting us and for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Thanks to you. I appreciate it.
Okay. And those who listen to us, we will see you and hear you in 2 weeks. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
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 There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.